He hit her so hard she hit the floor. No apology, no hesitation, just rage, because she dared to be pregnant. At 17, Savannah was called a disgrace, thrown out in the middle of the night, with nothing but a suitcase, $42, and a baby she hadn't even met yet. Her family told her she'd ruined their name. 6 years later, they walked into her bakery, begging for help. But the girl they broke? She didn't live there anymore. I remember the sound before the pain, the sharp crack of a hand against skin, then the floor, cold and hard beneath me, then the ringing, like someone had flipped a switch and shut the world off for a moment. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just lay there, cheek burning, vision spinning, breath caught somewhere between shock and silence, and then came his voice. "You lying little girl, that child is a disgrace to this family." That child, not your child, not my grandchild, just a mark of shame, a stain on his carefully pressed world. My stepmother, Linda, folded her arms across her chest like a final verdict. Her lips curled, not in pity, but in smug satisfaction. "Don't worry," she said, not even looking at me. "Our real daughter will make us proud." Real daughter, as if I were some temporary stand-in, some placeholder they never wanted to keep. Behind them stood Tyler, my brother, 2 years older, golden boy, quarterback, class president, son of the year. He didn't flinch, didn't say a word, just looked at me like I was garbage on the curb. "You've humiliated all of us," he muttered. "You should be ashamed." But I wasn't, not of the life inside me, not of the love that had made her. What I felt was something colder, heavier, like the final brick in a wall that had been building for years finally falling into place. My father towered over me, fists clenched, breath ragged. "You don't get to stay under my roof and ruin everything I've worked for," he spat. I don't have anywhere to go," I whispered. "Not my problem," he said. "That bastard child is not welcome here." He turned his back, just like that. Linda followed, flipping the light switch off in my room like she was ending a scene in a play. No one offered a hand. No one said goodbye. They went back to their dinner, as if I had never been there, as if I had never mattered. I packed in the dark, one small duffel bag, 2 pairs of jeans, a sweatshirt, a toothbrush, and one thing I had hidden for years, my mother's locket, buried behind a row of old books. The last thing of hers they hadn't thrown away. I didn't look back, not at the pictures on the wall I was no longer in, not at the stairs that once creaked beneath childhood dreams, not at the people who used to call me family. I walked out into the Texas cold, barely 17, pregnant, and utterly alone. But even then, some small, stubborn ember inside me whispered, "You are not broken. You are just becoming." There's something about bus stops at midnight, the way the cold settles into your skin, the way time moves slower, the way silence feels louder when you're sitting with a suitcase and no one to call. I remember hugging my knees on that metal bench, my breath fogging in the air, my phone clutched tight in one hand, even though the battery was down to 6% and I had no idea who I would even dial. I opened my banking app, 4208. It looked like a joke, 2 20s and a crumpled one in my coat pocket. Enough for maybe 2 nights in a budget motel, if I didn't eat, if I didn't breathe wrong. I had never felt so invisible. The people I called family had made it perfectly clear. I wasn't welcome. Not me. Not the life inside me. Not the love I still had, no matter how hard they tried to beat it out of me. So I sat, and I waited, not for rescue, just for something, anything. The world moved on. Cars passed. Streetlights flickered. Some man in a hoodie stumbled by, mumbling to himself. No one saw me. Or maybe they did, and looked away. That night I didn't cry. I thought I would. Thought the grief would finally crack me open. But all I felt was a kind of numbness that crept up slowly, settling into my bones like frost. I kept one hand on my belly, not protectively, not yet. Just as a reminder, you're still here, we're still here. It must have been 4 a.m. when I heard the jingling of keys and the slow creak of an old wooden door. Across the street, a light turned on in a corner storefront, the kind of place with hand-painted lettering on the glass and flowers blooming in pots beneath the windows. The sign read, "Sunrise Whispers, fresh bread and joy daily." The woman who emerged looked like someone out of a different story. Silver-streaked hair pulled into a low twist, warm brown coat, boots that clicked gently on the pavement. She paused as she spotted me, blinking in the glow of her shop lights. "Sweetheart," she called softly, "you all right?" I nodded, then shook my head, then just stared. She crossed the street slowly, not too fast, not too eager, just steady. "You hungry?" she asked. I nodded again. She unlocked the bakery door and pushed it open. "Come on in, it's warmer in here. I'm Delilah." I didn't know what to say, so I followed. The warmth hit me first. Vanilla, cinnamon, baked apples, and melted butter. It wrapped around me like a memory I didn't know I still had. She poured me hot cocoa in a chipped blue mug and set a still warm buttered roll in front of me. The moment I took the first bite, I broke. Tears I hadn't let fall in days poured down my cheeks, silent and sudden and unstoppable. Delilah didn't flinch, didn't lecture, didn't pry. She just slid a napkin across the table and sat beside me. And when I finally found the words, I told her everything. She listened, not like most people do. She listened like it mattered. When I finished, she placed a gentle hand over mine and said, "That baby, she's lucky to have you, you hear me? You're not broken, you're brave." That night, Delilah let me sleep in the storage room above the bakery. It was small, just a lamp, a cot, and a space heater. But for the first time in weeks, I felt safe. And for the first time in months, I believed we might actually make it. The first morning in the bakery loft didn't feel real. The cot creaked under me as I sat up slowly, surrounded by the quiet hum of ovens warming below. The scent of cinnamon rolls drifted through the floorboards like a gentle reminder, you're not on that bench anymore. I rubbed my belly, still half in disbelief that we'd made it through the night, still pregnant, still scared, but still here. When I came downstairs, Delilah was already rolling dough with practiced hands, flour dusting her apron like snowfall. She didn't say much at first, just nodded, smiled, and handed me a second apron. "You ever worked in a bakery before?" she asked. I shook my head. "No, ma'am." "Well then, we'll start with wiping counters." She winked, and just like that, I was useful. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't easy. But that first shift, scrubbing surfaces, sorting boxes, refilling sugar jars, it gave me something I hadn't felt in months. Purpose. Delilah didn't treat me like a charity case. She didn't pity me or prod at my pain. She just handed me tasks, offered hot drinks, and made space for my silence. And somehow that made all the difference. By the end of that first week, I knew how to knead dough until it felt just right. I learned the rhythm of the morning crowd, the sleepy-eyed teachers grabbing coffee, the elderly couple who always ordered 2 blueberry muffins and 1 newspaper, and I learned how to breathe again. "You've got good hands," Delilah said one afternoon, watching me pipe icing on a cupcake. "Steady, gentle, that's rare." I hadn't realized how badly I needed to hear something like that. Not "you're smart" or "you're pretty" or "you'll be okay." But this, a simple observation of something true in me. I started journaling again. Delilah saw me scribbling one night at the counter and smiled. "Write it all down," she said. "Even the messy bits. Someday you'll need to remember how far you came." So I did. I wrote letters to the baby, each one signed, "Love, Mom," even before I fully believed I deserved the title. "You don't have a crib yet," I wrote in one, "and I still don't know what I'm doing, but you've got me, and I'm trying, and maybe that's enough for now." I signed up for free prenatal classes at the community center. Delilah drove me to the first one herself. When I worried aloud about how I'd pay for anything, she waved her hand. "You'll pay me back by thriving," she said simply, like it was the most natural exchange in the world. The bakery loft became more than shelter. It became sanctuary. The gentle heat, the steady work, the quiet encouragement, they stitched me back together, thread by thread. And while I still had moments of panic, every cramp, every nightmare, every flash of memory, I also had something new. Hope. Real tangible hope. Not the desperate kind I used to cling to, but the kind that grows slowly, like bread rising in the dark, soft, steady, and inevitable. Every morning started before sunrise. The rhythm of the bakery became the rhythm of my healing. 5 a.m. Lights flicked on, flour clouds in the air, rolling pins tapping dough like heartbeat. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was grounding. There was something comforting about creating something warm, something sweet, in a world that had been so cold for so long. Delilah let me take on more, little by little. I learned how to work the register, how to greet customers with tired smiles, how to cut parchment paper just right for baking trays. But beyond that, she gave me dignity, responsibility, the chance to prove to myself that I was capable. Still, the fear never fully left. Some nights I'd wake up in the loft, drenched in sweat, hands on my belly, convinced something was wrong. Every ache made me panic. Every quiet moment felt like a ticking clock I couldn't read. What if I wasn't enough? What if I failed this child? What if I became like them? Those thoughts clung to me, cloaked me like the smell of burnt bread, hard to ignore, harder to wash off. Delilah noticed. She never pried, but one afternoon, after I had snapped at a jam order and immediately apologized, she handed me a mason jar filled with wildflower stems and said, "Grace, honey, you deserve as much as you give." I didn't know how to respond, so I wrote. That night I filled 3 pages in my journal, writing to my unborn child like they were already listening. "I don't know where we'll be in 6 months," I wrote, "but I know this, I won't leave you, I won't disappear. You'll never have to wonder if you're wanted." That entry changed something. I started dreaming again. Not wild fairy tale dreams, small ones, achievable ones. Like having our own apartment, with curtains and a kitchen. Like wrapping my baby in soft yellow blankets from the thrift shop window. Like being able to say, I'm a mom, without shame in my throat. And then, one slow Tuesday afternoon, as I was organizing the shelves behind the counter, an idea hit me. It started with a customer. She was a new mom, tired, overwhelmed, holding her baby with one arm and a half-eaten granola bar in the other. She smiled weakly and said, I wish I had something real to eat, and something that didn't make my baby fussy. And just like that, I saw it. What if I could make something gentle, wholesome, made from clean ingredients and love, not just for my baby, but for moms like me? That night, I scribbled pages of ideas, homemade lactation cookies, natural baby balms, teething rings carved from safe wood, products I had needed but could never find. Delilah peeked over my shoulder and smiled. You thinking of starting something? I nodded. Maybe, one day. Well, she said, start by learning how to track your sales and file your taxes. Dreams need spreadsheets too. She taught me how to balance the bakery books, line by line, profit, margin, inventory. Every note I took felt like building a bridge from survival to something bigger. I wasn't there yet, but I could feel it, something rising in me, like the dough we proofed in warm ovens each morning. It was slow, but it was rising. It started with a cramp, then another. At first I thought it was false labor. I'd been feeling tightness for days. My body was heavy, my ankles swollen, but I kept telling myself it wasn't time yet. Not tonight, not during a storm. But nature has its own timing. By 8:45 p.m., the rain had turned the streets of Austin into silver rivers. Thunder rolled low like a warning. I was in the bakery, wiping down the front counter when the pain hit harder, this time deeper, real. I called out for Delilah. She appeared in the doorway, apron still on, hair in a messy twist. Her eyes scanned me quickly, like a mother bird watching a wind shift. You okay, sugar? I shook my head. She didn't panic, didn't ask unnecessary questions. She just grabbed her car keys and whispered, It's time. The hospital wasn't far, but in the rain, every streetlight felt a mile apart. Delilah kept one hand on the wheel, the other resting gently on my knee. You've got this, she said, her voice steady, calm, like she believed in me more than I did. By the time we got to the delivery room, I was shaking, not from the pain, from the fear. What if I couldn't do it? What if I failed right at the finish line? I looked around at the sterile white lights, the beeping monitors, the nurses prepping trays like it was just another Tuesday. But it wasn't, not for me. This was the night I'd been walking toward ever since I stepped out into the cold with a duffel bag and no plan. This was the moment I became someone's everything. 12 hours, that's how long it took. 12 hours of sweat, screams, shaking, and surrender. Delilah never left my side. She held my hand through every contraction, wiped my forehead with cool cloths, and whispered over and over again, You're not alone, you've never been alone. And then, at 8:17 a.m., the world shifted. A single cry, sharp, defiant, and full of life, cut through the storm like sunlight behind clouds. They placed her on my chest, and I swear, time stopped. Tiny, perfect, warm against me, 10 fingers, 10 toes, a head of dark, damp curls, and eyes that blinked up at me like they already knew my story. I named her Hazel, but in my journal I called her something else. My moon. Because she had been my light in the darkest nights. She had pulled me through tides of fear and silence. She had been orbiting my soul before I ever heard her cry. I looked down at her, wrapped in a hospital blanket too big for her tiny frame, and whispered, We made it. The nurses buzzed around us, papers were signed, vitals were taken, but I didn't hear much. All I could focus on was her breathing, soft and even against my skin. Delilah leaned over, brushing a tear from her cheek, and said, She's got your fire, sweetheart. I smiled through tears. Not the kind of smile you fake, the kind you earn. Bringing Hazel home felt surreal. The cot in the bakery loft was gone, replaced by a real bed. A second-hand crib stood by the window, draped in yellow blankets Delilah had found at a church thrift sale. And for the first time in my life, home had a heartbeat. I wasn't sure what kind of mother I'd be, but I knew one thing. She would never have to wonder if she was wanted, not for a second. Hazel had just turned 5 the week the email came. We had spent the morning baking banana muffins, her giggling with flour on her nose, singing off-key to whatever was playing on the little radio in the shop. That afternoon, she was drawing stars behind the counter while I checked our online orders. When I saw the subject line, Urgent, from Tyler Brooks, my breath hitched. I hadn't heard his name in 5 years, not since the night I was pushed out like a mistake. Not one birthday, not one how are you, not even a text when Hazel was born. I didn't open it at first, I just stared, frozen. Hazel kept humming, her little legs swinging under the stool. When I finally clicked the message, it was short. Savannah, please call. It's Dad. He's very sick. It's serious. We need help covering treatment. Mom doesn't work. Ella's in college. We're desperate. Please. No apology. No, we were wrong. Just need. I didn't respond. Not that day, not the next. Instead, I took Hazel to the park. We fed ducks. We blew bubbles. We watched the clouds roll across the Texas sky. I looked at her, the girl they once called a disgrace, the child they said wasn't welcome. She was the most beautiful thing I had ever created, a masterpiece born from survival. And now, the people who threw us out like garbage wanted something from us. 2 days later, the bell above the bakery door chimed. I turned, and time stalled. Linda, Tyler, and the man who used to be my father. They stood there older, worn, smaller than I remembered. He looked at me like someone remembering a dream they'd once discarded. Savannah, he said, his voice cracked. I didn't speak. Linda stepped forward. Her tone was softer than I'd ever heard. We didn't know how far you'd come. We didn't know how strong you'd become. I shook my head. No, you didn't want to know. They looked down. Finally, Tyler, always the golden boy, spoke. Please, Dad needs treatments we can't afford. We lost the house. Ella's tuition drained the rest. We have nowhere else to go. I glanced behind the counter. Hazel was still coloring, still humming, still wrapped in the warmth of a world I had built without them. I turned back. I remember that night, I said. The slap, the silence, the look of disgust. No one called when I gave birth. No one cared when I cried alone in that loft above a bakery. My father's eyes filled with tears. I live with that every day, he choked. Then keep living with it, I said, voice steady. Because I built this life without you. And I won't let you walk back in now, just because I became something you didn't expect. Linda opened her mouth, but I raised my hand. You told me Ella was your real daughter, that your pride rested with her, so go to her. And then Hazel looked up. Mommy, she said, who are they? The word hit like thunder. Mommy, not daughter, not sister, Mommy. Mine. No one important, sweetheart, I replied, reaching for her hand. Just people from the past. I looked at them one last time. You didn't want her. You didn't want me. And now, when you're desperate, you don't get to pretend none of it happened. My father whispered, please. I stepped back. Then be sorry, but don't ask me to fix the consequences of your cruelty. And I walked into the back room, without looking back. Delilah stood there, arms crossed, eyes misty. Hazel tugged my sleeve. Mommy, are you okay? I knelt down, kissed her forehead. I am now, I whispered. And I meant it. After they left that day, I didn't cry. I didn't shake, didn't collapse behind the counter or question whether I had done the right thing. I just stood in the back room, holding my daughter, feeling her heartbeat against mine, and breathed. It wasn't triumph I felt, it wasn't vengeance, it was something quieter, deeper. Peace. The kind that settles in your bones when you realize you no longer need someone to say sorry in order to move forward. The kind that whispers, you don't owe anyone your healing. They tried again. A few days later, Tyler sent another email. Linda mailed a letter. Even Ella, who hadn't said a word in 5 years, sent a text. I didn't know it was that bad, I'm sorry. But I didn't answer. Not because I was angry, but because I was done. Closure doesn't always need a conversation. Sometimes it's just a locked door and a quiet mind. The business grew. Delilah retired and handed the keys to me. No ceremony, no speech, just a hug and a whisper. You made this place into something sacred again, now it's yours. I renamed it Hazel's Bloom. The downstairs stayed a bakery, but the upstairs, we turned it into something new. A shop for mothers who had once felt invisible. Mothers who were rebuilding. Mothers who needed a space to remember their strength. Handmade baby goods, organic snack kits, blank journals with gold foil that read, You are not alone. Hazel helped pick the logo, a little sprout pushing up from a cracked sidewalk, because that's what we were. Not pretty beginnings, not polished perfection, but resilience that refused to die. Hazel is in kindergarten now. She runs into my arms every afternoon like I'm the whole world, and maybe, for her, I am. She doesn't know the full story, not yet. She knows she's loved. That's enough, for now. One day, I'll tell her where we came from. I'll show her the letters I wrote in that tiny loft above Sunrise Whispers. I'll tell her about the night it rained and she came roaring into the world. And I'll say this. We didn't win by screaming back. We won by never becoming like them. I used to dream of revenge. I used to imagine what it would feel like to watch them regret every cruel word. But now? Now I know. The real revenge is this. Not just surviving their rejection, but building a life so whole, so sacred, so full of light, they're no longer welcome in it. Sometimes the loudest victory is the one no one hears. No screaming, no slamming doors, just a woman who was cast aside, choosing to rise, to rebuild, and to never look back. Savannah didn't need revenge. She didn't need their guilt. She just needed to live fully, freely, and without them. And maybe that's the lesson for all of us. You don't have to fight to be seen. You don't have to yell to prove your worth. You just have to keep going until the life you build is louder than the pain they caused. If this story moved something in you, if it reminded you of your strength, your worth, or your power to begin again, subscribe to Sweet Revenge Happy Ending for more true stories of quiet strength, bold survival, and beautiful transformation.